Joseph Bahout is a Middle East expert and director of the Institute for Public and International Affairs. He joins us from Beirut. Welcome to DW. Now that Assad is gone, is it inevitable that HTS will lead an interim government?
Good evening, and thank you for having me. It is inevitable, at least so far. I mean, HTS, or what has become now the interim authority in Syria, is calling the shots, as you have said and you have heard. Today, the former prime minister who's ruling under Bashar al-Assad has resigned, and the HTS and Joulani in person has appointed, in a strange way, constitutionally or institutionally, a new prime minister who's close to the movement. Now, having said that, I think that the reality on the ground is much more complex and confused and a little bit more, let's say, pluralistic. HTS is by far, of course, the dominant group in Syria today. However, it's not the only group. There are other factions within the coalition that took Damascus from the north, meaning with Joulani and HTS. And then you have another faction, which is less Islamist, I would say, people coming from splinters from the former Syrian army and other rebellious groups that are a little bit more secular, who were mainly active in the south of Syria and the suburbs of Damascus. And then you have the political reality of Syria in exile. The body of negotiation, the Itilaf, what we call the Itilaf, or the former Syrian National Council, which is also a coalition of various leftist, sometimes Islamist, and other liberal forces. So the situation is very complicated. Right. Of course, on the ground today in Damascus, Joulani is the strong man. So far, he is calling the shot. But all this is very constrained also by an international conundrum over Syria, where you have countries like Turkey, the Gulf states, mainly the Emirates, Russia still playing a role, the Europeans, probably Iran in a way or another, and tomorrow US under Donald Trump. So I think it's now a situation in flux, and we'll have to wait to see where things will finally really wind down.
All right. Is there a potential that then the country, Syria, will fragment, splinter, and we'll be looking at a different map in, say, 10 years?
I think the risk is there, of course, but it's very early to say that. I think that so far, and we have to acknowledge that, so far signs are more positive than negative, so far, and I hope that they will remain in this state. After a collapse of a regime that has ruled Syria for more than 54 years with an iron fist in a very brutal manner, to have such a bloodless transition today in Damascus is almost a miracle. And I think that many of us should salute that. Now, of course, the risks of splintering and fragmentation exist. First of all, the territory today in Syria is still not united. You have the coastal area, the area of the Alawite community, that is still in an unknown state. Of course, there are some negotiations probably going on to have these people accept the authority. And then you have the Kurdish faction, the Kurdish territory in the northeast of Syria, where probably a lot of people like the Americans, maybe the Israelis, a little bit the Russians, will try to negotiate with the new power in Damascus a sort of self-rule. Does this usher towards the fragmentation of Syria? It's very early to say.
OK, that's very clear. The US and Britain are saying at the moment that they might take HTS off their designated terrorist group list. A sensible idea?
It's sensible or not. This is realpolitik. These people are now in power. Bashar al-Assad's fall have been saluted by all these countries. They cannot at the same time do that and not find a way to negotiate or to talk or to work with the new power in Damascus. Now, of course, you have the facade of this government. They can say we talk to the government, but not to HTS. But this would be, first of all, very hypocritical. Second, very unrealistic politically, and probably in the long run counterproductive. But, this shows also how, vain and sterile are these lists of terrorist organizations, because Western countries ultimately forbid themselves of talking to really, I mean, the people who are in charge. You like them or not, this is not the question.
That's very clear. Thank you so much for guiding us through that, Joseph. Joseph Bahout is from the Institute for Public and International Affairs. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.